Today's scheduled for 6:30, so I'm going to take RJ and put him on the back burner, and then when he comes in, we'll add him as soon as whatever on is over. Wastewater report.
Dan is not going to be here.
Right. Quick look at the report.
That was really nice of him to go to Maine and pick up that part.
Was that?
Oh, yeah.
Work?
Yeah.
Oh. I thought he was on vacation.
It is. I'm just
And I thought he had posted last week, so I thought,
let's see. Broke 2 bells in the press.
Yeah, he said he made them feel sorry for us.
Oh.
I can just add that Dan called me, I think it was Wednesday, when they were having the trouble with the belts. And I know that he and Tim really scrambled to try and figure out how to get one in our possession as quickly as possible. So they definitely put their best effort forward to keep the costs of having to bring sludge to Morrisville as low as possible.
So other than the belt, it looks like usual, so we will. Anybody have a problem with accepting the wastewater report as written? Oh, it is. Troy, I think we're up for you. Yes, performance report.
On December 17th, there was an outage on Clay Hill caused by trees on the line during a high wind event. This affected 9 customers and the power was restored in approximately an hour. The crew also completed cleanup work on Gillen Avenue that was related to the big windstorm on December 13th. We responded to a call at 1969 Route 15 West with a complaint of blinking lights. We found a broken neutral wire at the point of attachment on the house, and the crew made the needed repairs. We energized a new 100 amp service at 131 Park Street. We repaired the street light circuit that feeds NVU security lights near our substation. We also continued our in-house right-of-way cutting, and the crew completed monthly meter readings, high-low checks, and dig safes. In the water sewer, we turned on water service at 131 and 155 Park Street. We had a frozen water meter at 53 Katy Wynn. The crew repaired the meter, and their service was reestablished. In general, we just continued our normal winter sidewalk maintenance procedures, plowing, sanding, and picking up snow. Safety. I'm working on scheduling the 2022 NEPA safety training classes. Continued working with the engineer from RSM Group related to the EV chargers going in at Jolly's. I updated the estimate to include the cost of the new overhead service and taking into account the down payment that was sent in. All repairs on our small bucket truck were made and is now operating properly. The total for repairs were close to 2,800. Which is a lot lower than the estimate of 4,500. I have been in contact with Ken Harvey's crew preparing to install a new 2-inch water line for the fire suppression system at the new building constructed for Lamoille County Mental Health. They're aware they'll need to submit a permit application for the sprinkler systems to the village. That's all I've got.
Any questions for Troy?
Where's that building? Is it the one at the very end of, just before you get the trolleys on the right-hand side?
Yes,
The blue house?
yep, the new building.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Troy? Seeing none, I'll just say, good work on the sidewalks as far as the sidewalk that I use, it's been maintained very well. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
So, I'm gonna read it. I attempt to read it for our report. I did skip over last month, so I will read that now. Responded to 13, this is October 29th and December 2nd. Responded to 13 calls. 5 calls occurred in the daytime, 8 calls occurred at night. The average duration was 99 minutes. Nature of the calls, there were 6 automatic alarms, 3 vehicle crashes, 1 CO alarm, 1 smoke condition, 1 odor investigation, and 1 mutual aid. The average number of firefighters that responded were 8. The total number of service hours was 87. And under other, we got a tanker completed his annual service and state inspection at Clark Truck Center, and the 2022 budget planning is underway. The intention of presenting information at the next board meeting. And then a report for December 2nd through December 30th. There were 9 calls, 5 occurred during the daytime, 4 occurred at nighttime. The average duration was 59 minutes. 1 automatic alarm, 4 vehicle crashes, 1 CO alarm, 1 vehicle fire, 1 debris fire, and 1 medical assist. The average number of responding firefighters was 12. Total number of service hours was 108. And our 2022 budget was approved at December 13th board meeting. The fire service contracts and related correspondence have been sent out to the 3 towns. Here later, questions. So let's start in the budget timeline. Meredith.
Yep. So I just wanted to go over really quickly, sort of what I see is the budget development timeline for this year. It's very similar to past years, so no rocket science here, but I just thought I'd run through it with you. I emailed it out, so hopefully you folks got it. But so Dan and I are scheduled to talk on December 20th about the water and sewer departments. So by the regular February meeting, I should easily be able to have a first draft of those department budgets ready for your review. And so we have 4 departments. And so for some of you who are still relatively new to the board, they're all intertwined in some ways with staff costs and certain overhead pieces. So while I work on, I have on the timeline doing the water and sewer department and looking at those in depth, I still do have to do a little work on the other 2 budgets in order to get the water and sewer done. But we'll look at the water and sewer in depth at the regular February trustee meeting. And then I'm proposing to have a special trustee meeting the week of the 28th of February, where we go over a first draft of the general department and the electric department. And then coming back at the March regular trustee meeting, the week, I think it's on the 14th of March, we would look at a complete draft of all the budgets, make any revisions that have been done, based on our discussions at the first 2 meetings where we talked about them, and hopefully approve them at that meeting. And that would set us up well to print and send out the village report the week of March 21st in preparation for the annual meeting that's going to occur on April 5th. I obviously with COVID, things are, I think, still up in the air. I know that the legislature is talking about different meeting requirements and maybe re-allowing some of the things that were allowed last year in terms of remote meetings. So we may want to, in a month or so, have a discussion about whether there's any desire to do anything different or ability to do anything different with the annual meeting this year. But I don't think we have enough information for that yet. Rosemary, let me know if you disagree. But as it stands now, that's sort of just going with the regular timeline and when we would normally have the annual meeting. That's how I see it playing out.
It has passed both the House and Senate.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
It was waiting for the governor to sign it.
Okay.
That's to do a remote meeting for our annual meeting.
Yeah, the same way as was done last year.
So everything will be all fairly.
Well, that's for the board to decide. You can either hold a regular meeting, have open, guidelines,
So they're
Are
not
you
forcing
giving
us to
them-
just allowing us to make our own decision.
or do it all up and down.
What's the capacity of our Zoom?
I think 100. I think Brian downgraded it, because we didn't need it.
Right. I can't see 100 people coming to a village meeting. Either.
No, it's easy. But Zoom, you can't really vote by Zoom.
Sure. So we'd have to do something with mail. Okay. All right. Yeah. My personal opinion is we'll pick this up next month and see where we're at and deal with the current information we have at that time. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Fine with me.
All right.
And Rosemary, time-wise, we have enough time to wait until the February meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Good. So let's just plan on. So you guys okay with scheduling a meeting for February 28th? So we get that on our books and our agendas. What is that? Monday.
Fine with me.
Steve,
Yes, good.
it's good for you. Diane.
And I will double check to, I'll make sure that that's not a date that the select board would be meeting for some reason. Just, I'll let you guys know, but we'll pencil that in for now.
I don't get one day. Yeah.
Can we also get the budget that you're going to propose ahead of time, like days ahead of time? Is that?
Yeah, that I should definitely be able to get it out. Would a few days before the meeting work, or do you need more in advance?
Oh, a few days would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
2-3 days should be
Would
good.
be great.
Yep,
Would,
no problem.
Meredith, was the 25th work for you?
For the special meeting,
Yeah.
is that Friday?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that should be fine at 6.
But anybody else can do the 25th?
I think I'm okay.
Okay. Steve, the 25th also work for you?
Of March?
Of February.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. All right, let's try to get it on the 25th then at 6 o'clock.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
You'll have to have the part of the warning by that time to sign it.
Oh, good. For the annual meeting.
So will have to be posted March 1st.
Okay, so 25th backs up 3 days, so that'll be good. Does that give you enough time?
Yeah, you just guys will have to decide at your next monthly meeting what we're going to do.
Okay. So good. So the timeline you emailed everybody, so does anybody have any questions for her on that timeline? What she just spoke of here. Okay. Anything else you want to for comments on that, Meredith?
Nope, that's it for that one.
Okay, so we'll move on to joint MOU. And I did read through that.
So I had a conversation with Will after your joint meeting, and then I reviewed the minutes from that meeting. And so hopefully I captured the intent and what everybody wanted in that draft, but I'm certainly open to make changes if it's not quite right. I did send the draft to Brian, but let him know that you guys would be looking at it tonight, and if you had changes, I'd revise it and then send it on, the revised version on, so the select board can look at it. In reading the minutes from the joint meeting, I know there was a discussion about not wanting to talk about sort of the land piece, but trying to focus on the buildings themselves. So that's what I hopefully accomplished in this, because it's all still, obviously one jointly owned parcel. So really just focusing on the buildings themselves.
I think that's exactly what that meeting, what came out of that meeting was which we put forward here. Just a basic understanding of, who has responsibility and stuff like that. As far as separating properties, that was something down the road, but this gets us started in that direction. So does anybody else have any, if we have a chance to read it, if they have any questions or anything else you want to add to it? Seeing none, so you guys.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know in the minutes, Beth asked to check with the recreation department. Is that some discussion down the road too?
Yeah, I think that's separate from this right here, as
Okay.
far as, this just gives us an overview of actual written contract as to, if something happens to a building, who's responsible financially and stuff like that. So I think as far as what we're talking about, shifting things around, that's a totally different topic. Unless anybody has anything
Well,
different.
because she wants to make sure that the recreation department and the employees are okay with what it is that we're doing. That was a request.
They would have no say over this portion. It doesn't affect them at all.
Okay, but it will be a discussion later on, probably, right?
It's a possibility. I haven't had a chance, Troy, I haven't had a chance to talk with Troy about getting, looking at that building as a possible, place for the electric department. So that'll be way down the road.
Okay.
So. I guess seeing no objection, what you got written here, nothing to add to it. If you want to forward that to Brian and get his board's opinion on it, and I think we can get this thing signed up and off our table for pretty quickly.
Yep. I'll let him know that what he's received is sort of our final version, and obviously they can let us know if they see other things that need to be changed, and he can send it back to us.
Yep, perfect. That's how it all works. Okay.
So the only thing I see that was missing on there was the Leaning Tower visa.
Oh, yeah,
That was the only thing that was
Yeah.
discussed that nobody wanted to touch.
yeah. Actually, I spoke with Troy about that, and his crew, when they get back together, we're gonna attempt to take down that wooden structure, which is the part that's really kind of that's I mean, the structure itself. Me and Evan went over and we both agreed the building itself is sound.
Yes, it's that wall.
Yeah, it's just that wooden interior wall that needs to come down, and I think as soon as they get some weather and lack of COVID,
So the village is gonna claim all the responsibility of that one.
we're not claiming the building.
Just gonna make it-
We're gonna get that issue taken care of, and if they need any help, obviously I'm sure the town would be more than happy to help with that. But that to me, Evan, was the only issue that we had as far as that building itself, other than the aesthetics of it. We need to take care of the safety issue first, and then we can work on getting some aesthetics addressed. Our house site, we don't want to get too in depth into that. Okay, I'm just gonna skip over the site plan for right now and go to review of grant funding. So I think we can finish that off before the sheet gets here. So Meredith, if you wanna just give us a rundown on that.
Sure. And, I don't need to read through this list. So for the people who are on Zoom, I sent the trustees a list of, since 2016, when I joined the village, all of sort of grant funded and maybe some not technically grant, but outside funding that we were able to bring into the village to complete various projects. So I had gotten, BJ suggested it might be helpful for the trustees to see it, so I sent it to all of you, just to help sort of give some perspective on money that we have been able to bring into the village. A lot of it has been 100% funding, and then some is 50% or 40% loan forgiveness. With a lot of the water and sewer projects, there isn't a lot of completely free money, at least pre-COVID, and so a lot of the best you could get would be put partial loan forgiveness or negative interest. So we did get some loan forgiveness, partial loan forgiveness on some of our water and sewer projects. And then you'll notice there aren't, I don't think, any projects on the list for the electric department that had grant funding. That is basically non-existent. I know we've talked when VEPSA was here talking about AMI back over 10 years ago, there was some federal money that other entities, not municipals, but other utilities were able to put towards smart meters. But since then, there really isn't a ton of money to help a utility, an electric utility operate. I will note that I did get a quick note from Ken Nolan saying that there has been some revision to the ARPA rules that may allow some of the money that the village received directly, our sort of specific allotment, may be able to go towards lost revenue for the utility. So I have to do some digging into understanding what that means. But just as a side note, since we're talking about money coming in, that's potentially good news in terms of federal funding that may be able to help us fill the hole that we had in 2019 and 2020 and 2021 related to lost utility revenue. But anyway, if any of you have any questions on any of the projects that I listed, again, I didn't want to bore you with going through them one by one unless you want me to. I just wanted to give you some perspective.
I did get a request from the former chair who would like to see that list put onto the village report. I told him I'd bring it up and see if you guys were interested. The grants in the budget, but the grant items that we received. So I told him to bring it up. So there's one add this to the village report. No problem.
I'm fine with that.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Well, you wanted to see all the grants from 2016 in this year's village report, or just the one from the last fiscal year?
I wouldn't be opposed because it's never been listed, but I'm okay with listing just this year. It's up to you guys.
We should be for the year.
For the year, what do you guys think?
And I will add that I probably didn't do a good job of like calling them out as standalone pieces, but every year I would write a report for the annual report and talk about what each department accomplished. And I think embedded in those reports, a lot of this information existed. There wasn't a whole section that said grants that the village received. It was more embedded in the text. So some of this information's been out there, but to Scott's point, it was not really overt.
Yeah, I think his point was to put it out there so we know, so it's easy to find. It's a
Right.
standalone report. So it sounds like the board is okay with adding this year's grants and stuff like that to the annual report as a standalone item. And you can write that up, Meredith.
Sure.
Thank you much. Okay. Is Troy still available?
Yep, I can go get them. One
Okay.
sec.
All right, so I'm just gonna skip over to the water for the ice rink. I got a notification. There was an issue with that and was asked to bring it to the board. Currently, you were taking care of the ice rink. There seemed to be some misuse of the hydrant. And it's been brought to my attention that no other municipality allows a non-employee to operate a piece of safety equipment, specifically a hydrant. So I think it would behoove me to ask the board your position on allowing any resident other than an employee of either the electric, the water, sewer, or fire department to operate a fire hydrant in our system.
Just stay on the safe side.
Keep it with an employee.
Sounds like a good idea for anybody to mess with it besides somebody that knows.
You guys want any backstory on that before you make your decision? Dr. Christian, did that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been doing it for 4 years now. We've had almost no issue. The biggest issue was when I started this year, I went to the town garage, I got the equipment, a lot of which I paid for, and I stored with their equipment in case they needed it. They gave me the wrong fittings, that's why they leaked. It leaked for 3 days when I was using it. It's a tough field to make ice on, put a lot of time in down there. I think it's important for the community. 4 years ago, there was a hydrant dug in. You know, you guys know how this stuff works, right? There's a main line going down the road. You got a hydrant comes up, goes over to another pipe, frost-free hydrant. Same water, one's a lot easier to use. One I can't use because, you know, we got 2 ports that don't get along. but that's a different story. I can use the hydrant, I've been using it for 4 years. And the village doesn't get billed for it, right? Nobody bills for it, nobody knows the water just goes into the field. Same as if the fire department did the hydrant, you know, it's the same deal, same water, same field, doing it for the community. And leak, you know, leak for 3 days because it made some ice there, cleaned it up, it's all good. My issue is that was addressed without calling me. Those guys know that I do the ice rink, you know. Could have been a phone call, we could have fixed it. I went back on Christmas, I got the right fitting. It's the one that I bought, it was just not with the other stuff, it was in the shop. So don't leak. There's no issue. It's not a pedestrian safety. I pump it out, I have 2 pumps in case one goes. I got a brand new Subaru clear water pump, and I got a brand new Milwaukee cordless pump. And I pump it every single time. Early in the season, when it wasn't real cold, you're talking 28 degrees, 20 to 28 degrees, something like that. I left the hoses running, I checked them every 3 hours. You know, that's not cold enough to freeze anything when you get water going through. You guys know that. If it's colder than that, I'm not gonna leave it. So I've done a pretty good job. I'm doing a lot for the town. And I think it'd be an injustice to take that away.
I'm not gonna discount the services you've done over the last few years and stuff like that. The issue was brought to me is that from a fire safety standpoint, we've been submitted, right? The board wants to continue to allow a non-employee to have access to this piece of safety equipment, specifically a hydrant.
May I ask a question though?
Yeah.
If you guys as firefighters are using it, what is the training for safely using a fire? Because you guys are some, and I might be wrong, are you some volunteers and some paid
The
staff?
fire department is all volunteers, all paid, oxymoron, paid volunteer.
Okay, instead of sort of saying we have to take it away, is it possible to think of it as how can we train people in the future to maintain it? Because it was voted last year by the select board that it stay on Legion Field, that it's crazy important for the community, that it's really highly used. So I think instead of heading down the road of shutting stuff down, let's try and think of it as teaming up and keep it going, but doing it safely in a way that everyone agrees to, in a managed way, using town resources instead of Brian's resources or whoever the next Brian that's interested in it is. Can we come up with a plan that's sustainable, long-term and safe for keeping an ice rink in the community? Because it's awesome and it gets a lot of use.
Are they talking about getting rid of it completely?
It would, if we did this, you guys would get rid of it.
It wouldn't be just somebody else doing it, it'd be.
And I had spoken to Troy the morning, the week that all the upset over the fittings and stuff happened. And I think he and I must have just had a miscommunication over which water source, because there are 2 there, but one is easier to use, it gives more volume and stuff, it makes more sense to use for this. So yeah, if it's okay, if we can direct the discussion towards what's a smart way to build on this.
I have some input
so
on
it's
that.
safe and stuff.
Yeah, I think so. The ideal situation is that we're not using the fire hydrant every day to make fire, right? I think the ideal situation is that I have access to the fire hydrant, and I use that at the beginning of the year to get some volume up there. I have 2-inch hoses now. I have my own equipment to do that. And I have, like I said, I went and bought a second pump this year just because sometimes starting to pump in the cold, I run it in my truck and keep it warm. I wanted to make sure I had the security when it's late at night that I had a second pump. So I have 2 pumps in the hoses to make sure that I'm not going to leave that thing full of water. And Troy and the other guys have showed me 2 years in a row how to use it. I actually went over it again this year because I didn't realize that you were supposed to run those things wide open. Most of the time I did, but I dial them down sometimes depending on the hose size. But now we have a ball valve, and so you can run it wide open and you ball valve off the hydrant. And so he said that works fine because it's not putting the pressure on the actual mechanism that is the fire. So it's a process. I'm open to what these guys say. It's their equipment that they run, And I respect that, and I understand that, but I'm trying to do, you know, you guys know what I'm trying to do, right? I got 2 young kids in the village, and, you know, I like to play hockey. You know, it's winter time in Vermont, we should have an ice rink, there's, you know, it'd be silly if we didn't. So ideally, I get to use that in the beginning to make a lot of ice when we need to. But then we're working with the town now to make sure we can get a meter put in that other box so that we can use the frost-free hydrant. And that's gonna be user-friendly where anyone can use it, and people can help. There's a lot of work, and I don't wanna do it all by myself anymore. You know, it's too much, and I've been doing it for 4 years, knowing that the town at some point is gonna get behind me in the village. Is gonna get behind me and push this thing forward, and it's gonna be a really cool thing. A lot of people use it.
There's no question about that. At this point, I'm gonna talk to Troy. So Troy, what can we put in place and how quickly can we put in place to take the hydrant out of the equation?
Well, I don't know, given the time of year, how quickly something can be put in place. My opinion is this, you know, and we can talk about it in more detail, but I know like all Harvey's pump houses, you could have a small building there. They heat them with just a milk house heater. You know, the valve could be inside, it's all heated, you know, he can make his attachments there and run outside and it never bother a thing. You know, the conversation Brian and I had, the last conversation was he was gonna try to figure out a way to insulate the box that the meter goes in so it doesn't freeze with heat tapes or something, styrofoam insulation and try to go that way. But, you know, we do have other, you know, things that we don't own in the village, you know, customer owned that are heated, like I said, with like milk house heaters and small heaters, just small buildings that, you know, we don't have any issues with.
I talked to Brian Story about that, he's on board, he's good with finding the money to keep that little building that's there and put some heat tape on. He just asked me to get a second opinion from a plumber, so I talked to Richard Whittemore about it, and we've gone over it. So we have a plan forming, but that doesn't happen overnight, and it's, you know, January 10th, and I want to keep making this.
Okay.
So I think long-term, we could come up with a better plan. Something more in-depth, but I really hate to see the ice rink can before I had access to them.
No, what exactly happened?
Yeah. So let's actually, Troy, do you want to step in? So I'm not speaking secondhand as far as the information you have as to what actually happened to bring us to this point.
My understanding, I got a call from Jeff on Christmas morning, probably about 10:30, that the sidewalk was all covered with ice because the hydrant, you know, was leaking everywhere. There was probably at least 2 inches of ice all over the hydrant, all over everything there. The water was running off that sidewalk and into the street, just an unsafe situation. You know, the thing is, he was out Christmas morning just trying to make things safe, and we had an issue like that occurring that really didn't have to be. You know, and I immediately said, you know, shut it off, you know, and unknowing in the winter, you can watch the weather and go by weather temperatures, but you never really know what's going to do. I didn't want that hydrant freezing up, breaking. You know, a new hydrant's about $2,300, and then you're gonna have 4 guys working on it for about 8 hours, so you can put another $2,000 into that. You know, so my advice, like I told you at the time, is we got to do something different here, and I strongly feel that, you know, no members of the public should be operating our infrastructure. Not to mention, no one's ever talked about the insurance of having Brian run it. If something did go wrong, who's going to be liable? Someone fell on that ice or whatever. So there's a lot of big issues here that need to be addressed.
Been running it every day since Christmas, and there's no leak anymore. And I do stop and the sidewalk on them.
And like I said, the insurance piece, I think, is something that really needs to get looked at as well.
So is there? Personally, I have to agree with Troy as far as having a non-employee operating our infrastructure, especially a piece of fire equipment. But we need to find a solution to get that ice rink up and running and keep it running. It's been something that the fire department had done for decades, and it was greatly appreciated. So I understand the pride you're taking in what you're doing.
Would we be able to get somebody from the fire department or the town that be willing to, when he needs to go and do it, to be a part of that?
I'm smart enough to learn how to do anything that's firefighting.
Well, it's nothing to do with your ethics,
Maybe
your
I should get paid
intelligence.
then.
Excuse me?
Maybe I should get paid, paid volunteer.
Or we're just going off from what he's talking about.
Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
So,
You guys give me 25 cents this year, won't cost you much, but I'm on your books.
yeah, it doesn't work with that. I'm trying to find a way to make this happen.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
you seem pretty head up.
Yeah.
So,
I got a lot into this.
and like I said, with the work you've done, I'm not disputing any of that. I'm just trying to find a way to meet both sides. One is to protect our infrastructure. Not saying that you're gonna screw it up, but it's just that I don't want to take that risk. It doesn't make any sense from an operational standpoint. And you just said, it's a lot of work for you. You want to get other people involved. We need to find a way to make that happen.
Right.
And if we hired you to do this, we still got the issue down the road that you need help.
Sure.
So let's find a way to make it so we can make this happen. And let's work together. Let's not be all head up about it. We're not shutting you down. We just want to find a way to make this work.
That's why I was saying, like, get somebody with the fire department or somebody with the town that would support you while you're doing it.
Lisa?
I just have a question, and it would probably require Brian or Rosemary or Meredith or someone to look into the actual insurance. But I know, like other rec projects will have volunteers come in and use things and operate equipment and be moving stuff around fields and different, assorted various things around town. I don't know how they're covered under insurance, but I would think that it would probably be a similar application to this, so that might be a question. Maybe we make like a list of things we need to sort to get it, to get a protocol set up. But I know that the volunteers of the town are somehow written into our insurance. I just don't understand exactly how.
And that's good to know, but for me, from this standpoint, is the position is that it's a $5,000 piece of apparatus. It's fire safety for that street.
Yeah.
So I'm not willing to put the risk out there, no matter how good the person is or how knowledgeable they are, to put that entire street at risk from fire protection. That to me makes zero sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
If you lose a ball or break a net for soccer, that doesn't impact someone's potential life. So I can't see putting that on the same level. So I mean, we got Cole. Go ahead.
So isn't that where the training bit comes into piece? I mean, you could accidentally break that and cost the village as a firefighter, not intentionally, but it could happen, and then that's gonna cost you $5,000. Isn't that where the training piece comes in? You try to train someone as best you can, and the likelihood of it breaking being very slim, and the chance of it working really well for the benefit of others was very.
I think heading down that road, considering that, you've already said, so how many, are we gonna start training 3 or 4 people, and then how much? I can tell you right now, if you don't repeat the training, you lose it.
Right.
So you may be very knowledgeable in a matter of a training session or 2, but then you got 2 other people helping you out that may step in twice a year. They're not gonna have the knowledge. They're not gonna keep up on it. We got 28 people on the fire chief who are always checking each other. So the likelihood of that happening, I understand it can, don't get me wrong, but the likelihood of that happening with the amount of training that we do every week, is significantly less. I don't want to head down the road where we get someone who does it once or twice a year and doesn't remember the safety protocols. I want to get away from the public having access to that fire safety.
I agree with you, and
Okay.
that would be fine if I were the only person allowed to use the hydrant. The other water, we're figuring that out, and that's a separate piece of it, and that's gonna be the help of the resurfacing, the smaller hose and the garden hose and that sort of stuff. So it's just that one piece of it, and that's what we would need moving forward from here. But what we need right now is just my ability to legally use the hydrant and continue making ice. And the last piece of that is, are you guys looking for volunteers in the fire department? I can join the fire department. It's something I've considered since I've lived in Johnson, and I finally bought property.
It would have, that somebody take up the chief as far as availability and stuff like that. This board isn't necessarily that aside, we still wouldn't be operating it under the guise of the fire department. So it'd be outside of that.
So but if we go back 7 minutes ago, you said maybe we need to get a fireman involved or a volunteer involved to come watch me do it. And now, if I join the fire department, I'm not under the fire department.
I didn't necessarily say to watch you do it, to come and be a part of it where they're doing it with you, basically. That was my idea. That way, when it took care of 2 problems: 1, there's a town employee there, and 2, it's giving you assistance, so you're not doing it by yourself. That's just was my way of
So
thinking.
what times of day are you filling the ramp?
We're, you know, more often than not now in the morning. It's a little nicer out there at 3 in the morning, you know, with coffee going and get ready for the day.
Would you have, Troy, would you have any availability to have one of your crew members assist on some mornings to, I'm assuming that this is not something that you're doing every morning.
I'm doing when the weather's good, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna be doing it tomorrow morning because it'll be too cold, but I'm certainly gonna be doing it tonight after the meeting.
Do you know ahead of time when you're going to water?
I mean, I got 2 kids at home, you know, I got a life, I run a business, I got a lot going on, so it's when I can make time, you know, and I run pretty regular this time of year, just trying to make it out.
Would it help to have somebody else, if you ever can, to have somebody else back you up and then
I think
get ice down when you need it?
I think all the backup could come from running the other hydrant. You know, I think that is mostly what we need, is that second hydrant, and all I'm asking right now is just my ability to keep moving forward in the same way that I've been doing for 4 years now. And just, you know, we're talking another month or so, right, and we'll have that other hydrant hopefully going, and I won't need the big flood.
So the next question was the timeline.
Yeah.
You think in a month we'll be able to have that?
I think sooner than that, but you know, I think that'll put a lot of.
I'm
We all got a lot going on, you know.
I always prefer to do the outside, so if you say a month, but you need 6 weeks, I'd rather have you say a month and mean hopefully 2.5, so
Right,
that's
exactly.
smarter.
And the other thing I wanna say is the bigger context of this for right now is that, you know, we just got a $4,000 grant that includes this ice skating rink as being one of the cornerstone pieces of that grant. And so we for that grant to be fulfilled properly, we also need this rink to be up and running.
And just to be clear, I personally am not talking about shutting this operation. I think
But
I'm
I'm
clear with
saying
that, so,
that it would have, you know, this has a ripple effect.
right. All right, so. What's your pleasure, guys? What do you want to do? Personally, I think we need to, see if Troy's guy can work with you for the next 3 weeks as far as getting it filled, and just make a policy that during fire calls, obviously firefighters have access, and then the village guys have access.
Mine, me personally, I say if it's only gonna be 4 weeks, put a timeline on it, let it do it for 4 weeks until the other one's up and going. And check into the insurance unless there's something specifically saying he cannot do it and then end it at that time. But I prefer to get the town or somebody involved to help, but if we can't go that route, it's 4 weeks at max. Just let them finish it out. He's been doing it for 4 years.
Okay. I'd like to see one more training session with the village guys if we do that route. So that'd be a full.
Maybe he's seen full for that.
Full step with that. Troy, would you have a man available to do a complete rundown on how to operate the fire hydrant and how to clean it out? Make sure he has one more session of how to do that.
I would, I just would need to know when, you know, obviously, you know, what the situation we're dealing with right now, Will, so we're a little short staffed, but.
Right. So it depended upon your guys' schedule and your schedules coordinating.
Take Hatfield in, you know, we can't go full month, you gotta make sure that it's done within a 2-week period.
No, the training part.
The training part, I think the training part should be done before.
Immediately.
Before the hydrant is turned on. Yeah.
I'm just talking about before that next hydrant or whatever is done and completed.
Okay. All right. So I guess makes sense to you, Diane?
Sure.
Steve, does that
Been working.
make?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Okay. All right,
So we
so
definitely, we definitely need to look into the insurance, just cover the assets.
do we need a motion for that? It's just gonna be
Make a motion on it, we'll be liable.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion to allow use of the hydrant for up to the next 4 weeks. And a tutorial on use before it's used again. And then after 4 weeks, it becomes policy that only employees are allowed to access hydrants. Does that make sense?
So we look at creating a position here, so that there's an employee involved, I'd be happy to take that position, I don't care what they. $10 stipend, you know.
Yeah, I'm not willing to move forward with that, but I'll be looking for a motion.
Can we talk about that?
Lisa, let me ask you something.
Have him to do the list and then.
Again, the issue I see with that is that then we got, just like I said before, so he does it, but he still needs other help, and they help out once or twice, and then they don't have the knowledge to keep running it.
But I would just still be the only one doing it, I wouldn't let it, nobody else has touched it, I've never had anybody else do anything with it.
But and actually, the issue's gonna go away because we're gonna have the other access.
Right, but we still want the big access partial part of the year.
That can come up in a plan, though. I think let's focus on this year's ice. And then we can create as a community like a thoughtful, smart plan to put an ice rink back out and have it be a sustainable thing that is, we've followed all the insurances and we look up all the who's allowed access and we get all the right kinds of equipment and we have people trained on, like, we can do all that for next year if we're thoughtful now.
Right. So I got a question, because I don't speak, so I'm not coordinated enough. Is this a line rink?
It is lined, the liner's 3 years old and it's been pretty shredded. The field's like 9 inches out of level there, hard to see, but I did bring my transit out, and so I've been talking to the town about hopefully leveling and getting it closer. It would take a lot less water if we got a flat spot there. And now that we have a designated size, we didn't always have boards, I always used roofing planks and everything. We bought boards this year that we're gonna keep using 2x12 PT, so we're gonna put it in the same spot. If we can get that closer to level, adding material, not taking anything away, because I know there's pipes under the ground.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a lot less water, and we'll probably get a new liner at some point.
But with the liner, my thought is that if we had the first cold night, if the fire department did do a drop,
Yeah.
where you get that,
Yeah.
put in, I don't know what size it is, but if you put in, 6,000 gallons or something like that, that's gonna give you your base, and you can maintain it with the other.
We did that in the past, and that worked really well when we had the new crane, the new liner. At this point, it's so shredded, I actually have to stand out there and freeze the whole thing. Otherwise, everything just goes in every direction. And
Okay. So whether you get a new liner, whether you take the smaller hose and freeze in the length, and once it's ready,
yeah.
if we, at that point, we can talk to the chief and see if we have access to do
That
it.
water comes out 70-something degrees from the firehouse, the first dump, so that sort of melts it sometimes.
Right.
Depending on how we lay it, we can coordinate that, and I'd be psyched for that.
So I mean, that'd be something that would get you your base, because before when we did it, and I've been involved with it for years myself, is that it was all just snowbanks.
Right.
So you had to keep getting thousands of gallons every day.
Yeah.
But with the liner, that might be something that would put less pressure on the fire department, which these times are different than it was 20 years ago. Between the number of calls have gone up and the number of volunteers it's getting hard. Employers aren't letting firefighters leave for calls, stuff like that.
Right.
So maybe with a liner, with an effective liner, that might be something we can solve. The starter, and then we'll have the access to the pump house, the heated pump house for your other access that you can maintain it. I agree. I think, Lisa, I think we can work together and make this happen. So, and again, none of this is a personal thing.
Sure.
It's more of a, for me in this position, it's a liability issue that, I mean, it's just, that's all it is. It has nothing to do with you personally.
What's the cost on that again? It's $5,000 to replace a hydrant?
The number is right around there.
Yeah.
He said about 2,300 for the hydrant, maybe another 2,000.
What if we found somebody to put up a retainer for you? You pay them back with interest,
But it isn't also just about the cost of it. It's a matter of when it's down.
Right.
The other thing, Will, is if that was to break, and we have a water leak, then and we contaminate the system, then we're at a boil water order as well. So There's some issues there.
And for me, it's just that it's there providing fire service, and if it does break, we're down, and then you can't tell me we're not gonna put fire on that street during that time. So I want to prevent that from happening. If we can do that by working with the chief and getting a dump to get your base, we'll have the pump house set up here within a month, and you'll be able to maintain it throughout the rest of the winter that way. I think that's personally, I think that's gonna be the best solution.
Okay. So I put a motion out to have them continue for the next 4 weeks, to do a quick training with the town. And also we look into the insurance, and as long as something doesn't come up to where it says we cannot do it, we'll have them do it for the 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then continue from there with the fire department doing the base and having.
Well, that's, don't need that motion, we just need a motion to make sure that the infrastructure is not accessed by the public.
Access by the public. Okay.
All right, so I think if I can reiterate what BJ just said, is that we're gonna allow access to that hydrant on School Street for the next up to 4 weeks. With a tutorial from the village crew before it's turned on again. And then going forward after that, it would be our policy to not have public have access to any of the water infrastructure. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for a second on that.
I'll second it.
Steve seconds it. Okay, so any more debate?
Is 4 weeks, you think it's doable?
Go.
Or you can find someone to work with Brian that will do it when he's.
He just, the only thing with the motion is that
I
before it
know, I
turns
just
on,
want
it
to
is
find
a
that
tutorial.
information out. I just want to answer to that. Is there someone that will work with Brian on the group, do you think?
As long as everybody's healthy, there will be, yes.
As long as what?
We have people that are healthy and able to come to work, we will, yes.
Troy, my question to you is, do you think personally that I need more training? I mean, you and I have talked about this in depth, we went back over it on the phone on Christmas Day. It's working real well with the ball valve.
I think, my opinion, Brian, as long as all the connections are tight, you understand that it has to be run wide open and you can throttle it back with a ball valve. I think we're good. You know, the biggest issue we had obviously was all the leaks and things. And if those have been satisfied, you know, like you've said, you do know how to run it.
We'll leave the tutorial up to you guys. So
I'll leave that up to the board though.
I'm not gonna mandate what kind of tutorial it is. If you call Troy and say, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and Troy says it's okay, that works for me.
Great.
Okay,
Good.
all right, seeing no more discussion, all those in favor? I'm sorry,
It's probably a sidebar though. Can we talk about would a dump from the fire truck help now, or do you have?
Not at this point, no, just,
It's
I mean, maybe
overflow?
when it's when it's too warm like this, it burns a hole and I'm trying to fix another one right now.
Okay, all right. Sorry for the sidebar, this is.
just keeping it at maintenance at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can
No,
do it.
it's pretty good ice, it's just not skatable this week,
Nice.
yeah, so we're excited.
Thank God for people with coordination.
Yeah.
I would kill myself. All right,
Well, thank you guys.
with that, all those in favor of said motion signify with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
And chair will vote aye, that's unanimous, done, and we're gonna go back to chief.
Thank you. I'd like to revisit an old project that got put on hold when the pandemic hit. So Rescue 2, which is the dual-wheeled, one-ton style pickup, it's in our capital truck plan for replacement. It was actually up in 2020 was the planned event. The prior board had given approval to do it, and then the pandemic hit, and with everything, I just totally put it on hold. I think we're back at a point now where I can come up with the time to do that. So what I'm really sort of trying to do is revisit it, or if anything, just be like totally open and honest. I definitely don't want to go ahead and get a truck and have you guys be surprised. So I'd like to just kind of reaffirm the project, which is the replacement of that truck. It was in the plan to be replaced in 2020. The way the plan works is we have money sitting in that account to do the funding, so we have the ability to do it. It's not gonna take a special bond vote or anything like that. That's what our annual contribution goes into that account to replace the whole fleet. And so I'm sort of just trying to play catch up on a project that was essentially by a different board was given the green light, and I feel it's more appropriate to come and re-ask or revisit, I guess. Reaffirm is really kind of what I'm hoping for.
So my understanding, chief, is that, the fire department has a capital plan to replace all the trucks.
Correct,
And this truck was supposed to be replaced 2 years ago.
correct.
All you're looking to do is just to reaffirm what has been the practice that's already been approved by another board.
That's correct.
Yes.
I'd like to.
So I guess at this point here, does anybody have any questions as far as moving forward with the process that's already in place, or?
We're doing the whole thing with turning the old truck in, down payment and stuff, or is that too far gone for anything like a?
No, it has some value. I foresee the old one getting traded in towards the project. And what we have always done in the past is there is an approved line item for the project, so that gives us a budget constraint or a budget cap. We price out, quote out, look at our ability to do so, do the replacement project. In the net proceeds, if there is return, that'll go back into the fund, or if we, if it's used as part of the monies, then the amount that is turned in on the invoice. So the end result is we have, in this case, we have a $52,000 cap. That would be, I wouldn't be able to spend any more, and the end of the project, whatever happens with the other vehicle, if there was a proceed, it would be returned back in so that the capital truck plan would have a credit.
Gotcha.
The plan does not rely on anything as an income. The plan relies on the yearly contribution to sustain itself.
What truck was it?
The 2005 Ford 350, the dually.
Yeah, see. Or any other questions?
What's the price of the new?
The price that is in the capital plan is $51,700. That was the 2020's dollar.
And you located a truck or?
No, I haven't. I didn't want to restart the project without revisiting it in front of you guys. So I haven't done any research. I don't even know if availability will be a problem. I honestly don't know. If it is similar to the last truck, so its purpose is primarily the command rig, and it's the tow vehicle for the water rescue trailer, for the big trailer. So that's the tow capacity, the dually. Most likely, we would buy a cabin chassis from a local vendor, from a local car dealer, and then have a utility box mounted on the back. That's probably how the project would occur. So we'd buy the cabin chassis from one company, and then we would do the body and the assembly part of it from the second company.
And that's what this truck that you're gonna trade in has, right? The trucks are gonna be basically the same.
That's
One is brand new, and the other one is a 2005.
right. The one that we're trying to get rid of that we want to trade in is a 2005. It has a little bit of rust issues and stuff in the back bed. It's still doing the job, but it still has some value. And the more important thing is the way the capital truck plan is set up is it's prepared to do a purchase every 5 years. So whether it's the biggest, most expensive truck or the smallest one, within that cycle, we can pay off the current project and then we start a new one. So the funding, the balance is worked out so that we can do the purchases on a rotation that's been predetermined. So every truck has a slightly different lifespan, and we're always finishing one project before we start the next one. So we're always able to sustain it with the balance that's in the savings account.
So that's just standard operating procedure, which has been going on in the capital truck fund.
Yes. Yep.
I see nothing wrong with it. It's not gonna change your budget.
No, it's not gonna change our budget, our contributions are already set within the budget.
You have any questions,
What's the
Steve?
trade-in value?
No, you have my wholehearted support to pursue it, RJ.
What's your question?
What's the trade-in value?
I
Do you
really,
know?
No idea.
I don't know, Diane, until we like present it to a dealer or something. I mean, I sort of have a number in the back of my mind, but I don't think it would really be fair to set that as.
2005.
You know,
There's no way.
used
Or
cars
private,
and
you can still sell
trucks
it
are
privately,
going
too,
for more
if somebody
than,
wanted it.
it's just a question.
It's always a good idea. I mean, it's a great time to trade in, but it's not a great time to buy. But
Well,
we
that
get
was,
the money.
yeah, and that was my question, RJ, what if 2 years later, these things are untouchable, unfindable and unaffordable? You know, like your 51,000 is just not even gonna stretch as far as
Let's
it.
come back to the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have to adjust the scope of work, right? So the way the truck plan is set up, every truck has its duties that it has to do and it has a lifespan. So if I can't purchase a vehicle that can serve the purpose, can respond to the community, then I'll have to change my goal, what I'm going after. If inflation has driven them way up, then we'll have to look at our options or look at our financing situation. So I mean, I don't know how far off we are with that 2-year lapse, but.
And you're not necessarily saying it has to be brand new, it could be a used.
Right, we can look at whatever, so my two most important, well, three things. One is, I always really try to take pride in not going over budget, but the two biggest things are that it has to do the job. I'm not willing to compromise just to be able to get something. And it has to be able to do it for the lifespan that we've set up, because if a truck needs to be replaced prematurely or earlier than what we planned, then financially that puts us in a tough spot. Maybe not solving that problem, but think about our plan right now goes to 2050. If we changed our minds 5 or 6 years from now, that's gonna have a snowball effect on what happens 10 or 15 years from now.
Yeah.
So my two priorities are making sure that it can serve and making sure that it can last the duration that we have in the plan.
It's not just this truck, it's every truck has a rotation. And to make sure to be able to have it fit in so that we're not paying on 2 trucks at the same time, it has to kind of stay in that rotation.
Yeah, there's 6 pieces in the plan for rotation.
Yeah, you're definitely right, Kyle, it will have to be adjusted, because I mean, I was looking at F-350s the other day, and it's like 60 grand just for a pickup truck, that's not talking about the rest, so.
Yeah, but he's looking for a cabin chassis, so it's gonna change it up some, but.
Right, but I'm just saying with it, like she was talking about inflation, it's gonna hit us in the
And
field.
also, when the town was getting their new Dodge, they tried to get 3 different trucks before they got that one, so.
Any other committee put together is a small committee.
So you just want permission to continue to carry on and what?
I think at this point here, the commission has been given.
Yeah.
So as long as no one has any objections,
Just
to
making
moving
us
forward
aware
of it, I think we're all set.
Yep.
Make a new motion.
No, because I mean,
No, sorry.
everything else, Rosemary, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but
I think it's kosher to.
I would
you'd be okay with, you prefer a motion, okay? All right, so
I'll make a motion that we allow the fire department to use their capital truck fund to search for a replacement for the 2005 Ford.
Yeah, rescue 2.
I'll second it. You have a second on that?
Second.
Any further discussion? You got any problems? I agree.
I'm gonna come back and forth with that one line. For purchase.
Sorry?
Are you gonna repeat yourself?
I don't gain from this at all. Yeah, if you can explain to me how I benefit from this, I would be more than happy.
Well,
to
we
do
talked
so.
about when you got on the board that you're gonna recuse yourself from any financial stuff with the.
Yeah, like just for pay and stuff like that.
So I think the chair has all the responsibility of being in this conversation because it doesn't affect
I didn't say
him.
even be in the conversation, I just said from the vote, which is gonna pass.
I don't want to set a precedent. I mean, I don't find that there's any benefit that I'm gonna gain from this. So I don't see how.
It's just the, you're a lieutenant in the fire department. I'm not saying you're, but there's any amount, it's just keeping things clean and keeping things separate.
Rosemary, did Rory ever recuse himself from budget items in the fire department?
Well, we talked about it, you see.
I said with kind of benefit if there was, and obviously the pay raise and stuff like that, that's very obvious. So, okay, thanks. All right, so any more discussion on this topic, this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify with an eye. Aye.
Aye.
And it's 4, chair votes aye, it's unanimous, it passes.
Thanks, RJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Okay, let's get back to powerhouse site plan with Kate.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. So where things stand, I met with Diane last week. We had a day that wasn't terribly cold, and we were able to spend a couple of hours out at the site. And she was able to give me an overview of what you guys might be looking for in this project. And my understanding is that at this point you support a scheme, a design scheme for the former powerhouse land that would allow people to get near the ruins and have some views of the river, but you do not support creating access to the river directly at that location. So this would probably include some sort of a logistically some grading, which would be part of smoothing out where the rubble is right now, where the former sort of concrete pad was. I'm adding some clean fill, so kind of capping some of the brown fields, contaminated areas, and then shaping some sort of maybe like a ramp with some stairs included in it, like a terrace of sorts, perhaps probably more than one, that would then lead to a platform. So the idea would be to not create something really massive looking there, because the point is to showcase the beautiful bridge, which is now so much more visible than it had been before. So that's what we discussed.
So I'm really not remembering anything about doing any kind of terrace at this. My recollection was to get a paved area, enough area to put in a picnic table or something like that. People would come and have lunch, do the bridge, and a barricade, like a guardrail type thing, so that had a termination of the parking area to the access to the river, and then, like you said, capping off the brownstone stuff. So what was the terrace? Where would that be?
Well, you have to landscape it so that people with disabilities can access that whole thing. So what we talked about was where the rubble is at the top, to level it this way, and then you have to find a way for people with disabilities to come from the parking lot, go up to the place where they're going to get onto the platform. So that's going to be terraced a little bit. The platform over the foundation.
Yeah, well, I'm remembering a couple different things. So I guess my memory is one thing where you guys.
I thought we were doing something simple like grading it, planting grass, covering up the brownfield areas.
Couple benches.
And putting in some picnic tables.
Yeah,
if we start doing any type of infrastructure with ramps and, as you're saying, terraces, then we have to comply with all the ADA stuff. If it's natural, you have to comply with all the ADA specifications. So if it's just a natural slope and then we're mowing it, there's no central infrastructure there. So I thought it was just going to be something simple. Because we still haven't found out if we can get rid of the concrete yet. Because that has to go before anything happens.
We have to have some kind of plan. And I know we talked about being able to see the river from the foundation. that was going to be a platform. Otherwise, you can't see the river. It's the foundation is there.
You can stand in that parking lot and do whatever.
Yeah,
The foundation is right there.
but if you were,
I mean,
if you were just to
You
cap that,
want to create something that is going to attract people to come to the town. And part of that is creating something that is beautiful. And if you just cover up the rubble, that is what you're doing. You're covering up rubble. And I think it's really important to make that site beautiful, like the covered bridges. And so let's talk about doing that and seeing if we can get some kind of funding to help us make that a beautiful spot.
Like I said, I think it could be a great spot with just being mowed. That's gonna keep the cost of the project down low, because like I said, we still don't know if we can get rid of that concrete yet. Or bury it.
yeah,
Let's
I think
find
capping it.
out, but
capping
would
is
you,
an option.
if we can get rid of the concrete and cover it up, not the concrete foundation, right? You're not talking about that.
Is Meredith, are you have any remembering of that, or Rosemary, as far as the foundation?
So there's an unknown regarding the concrete pile. And that's where we need to do additional testing. And we need to do, based on sort of a general idea of what the future use is going to be, a corrective action plan to understand environmentally what needs to be done to the site in order to make it safe for future uses. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation where we wanted to have a sense of what the future use was before we went back and developed the corrective action plan. But knowing what that corrective action plan is and what it would entail, I think in some ways will affect the scope of what we do there, if that makes sense. So that's where I've been, having agreement. This is the general idea of what we're going to do at that site, and then being able to go back and work with the folks, presumably maybe the same company that helped us before, since they have knowledge of the site, to say, generally speaking, this is what we want to do at the site. And now help us figure out what needs to be done environmentally to make it safe and to make the EPA and the state happy that the site has been brought up to the whatever condition it needs to be at to support that use. Hopefully that makes sense. So, but yes, there is an open question about how much more site work needs to be done, both in terms of the concrete pile, the existing or the foundation that's still there, the soils that are there, whether or not those soils need to be capped in a certain way or removed. So there are still questions about the site in several different ways.
So was the foundation to stay?
If it was to stay, right? I mean, so when you're talking about a platform,
So
I envision this wooden structure. So am I incorrect? I mean, that was an assumption I made. I made an assumption I should be doing that.
yeah, so if this is the foundation, the
Yeah.
river is flowing this way.
Yeah.
The parking lot is down here.
Right. And the
You
rubble,
would have
rubble's
it-
in between the parking area and the foundation, correct?
What?
The rubble is between,
No, the rubble is up here.
above it?
It's going up Route 100C.
Yeah, there isn't much land where they have it filed. It's pretty much
Right.
It's
It's where
15
the
feet
old,
drops off.
it's where the old, what do you call those, substation? It's where the old substation
okay.
used to be. So the rubble is here, the foundation is here, and we were thinking of sloping it down, but then you'd have to find some way of having people with disabilities access to the platform that would go over the foundation.
It's have you looked to see it all where the state right away runs right there?
I think it's 26 feet.
Yeah, but it could be like your lawn, you know what I mean, where there's half of your lawn is future right away for the state.
Right.
So is that section right up to the foundation? You know what I mean? That's something that we definitely have to look into.
So if I can interject, hi, if I can interject. So yeah, so it's measured from the center line of the road. So it's about, a little over 25 feet, not quite as much as 26. And so that extends to just about where, where the road, the embankment is. And then it sort of drops down. So somewhere right where that is happening is where the state right of way ends. So there is actually a little bit of space there. And because it's lower than the road right now, it actually feels like you have a little bit of sense of protection from the road if you were sitting there at a picnic table or something like that. So that seems like an opportunity to create a sitting area like I think that you guys were imagining. However, there's quite a steep slope to get down to the ruins themselves, which, are just very exciting and dynamic and interesting. And so the idea would be a scheme that would propose some kind of imagine like a deck built over the ruins, could even sort of cantilever over it a little bit, maybe raised up on some supports, so that you could then get there, because apparently it's quite possible that there's a degree of contamination in the actual ruins that are down by the river. So the idea of direct contact with those ruins seems unwise and probably unlikely. So we have to kind of think of something that sort of floats people over the whole thing. And that's where the idea of maybe shaping some sort of terraces came into our minds as a way of creating some more usable space, but also bringing people a route down there.
Meredith, was the foundation cleared of PCBs, or was that never tested or still up for future testing?
Oh, boy. I believe that it is known that, or I can't say that it's known because I know there was some access problem in terms of actually getting to do some of the testing, but I think there's at least a high probability and belief that some of the concrete that is left, not the concrete pile, but the ruins, has some level of contamination on it. I'd have to go back and look at the report to see if they actually were able to definitively test it, or if that was just based on the staining that they saw, their educated belief. I'd have to go back and look.
And they allowed the foundation to continue to stay, or was that future possible
Possibility of it being capped, so there's no.
The foundation.
Right, so there's no contact with the public in the future. Is that?
Right. And again, I think a lot of the future decisions and what we're going to be required to do depends on what we say we would like to do with the site. So it's, like I said, it's a little bit difficult to make a decision now on what we're going to do with the site, because we don't know exactly what we're going to be asked to do in order to support that use. So I'm sitting here listening to this thinking, maybe we can, if we get to some level of agreement tonight or in the next meeting of, sort of high level, this is what we envision. Maybe it makes sense then to go back to KAS or the people at EPA or the Brownfields folks at LCPC and say, can you give us a ballpark sense of, if this is the plan we're going to go with, what we would need to do at the site to make that possible? And is that a major lift? Is it extremely expensive in order to remediate the site to the point to support this use? It seems like I don't want to get too far down the design and then find out, oh, it's going to cost $1 million to, I'm exaggerating grossly, but, another $100,000 to get the site to support that use. That's what I want to avoid, going down the path too far and then realizing what we need to do to make that possible is cost prohibitive.
What's the,
that makes sense.
does anybody know the grade between the shoulder of the road and the top of the ruins? I mean, is it 2 feet or is it 20 feet?
Well, from where the fence is now
Yeah.
to the ruins?
Yeah.
Well, probably closer to 20 feet. So it's a lot. I don't know if it's as much as 20 feet, but it's certainly,
So
it's significant.
The grade needed to get the ADA compliant ramp down 20 feet, you're not gonna have.
No, it's not, it's, the platform will be above the ruins, not down on the ruins, right, Dave?
Yeah.
That's correct. And we would need more information about, the topography is something we'd have to investigate and that kind of thing. But one of the advantages that you do have in terms of a ramp with that site is it's quite long. So you have the ability to have a ramp that does a very long, slow, zigzag or something like that, that would bring people down.
Right.
And but a lot of this would have to be, investigated. I don't know the answers to those questions without actually getting into the design of it.
Right. Would it make more sense to, obviously, I'm assuming that we're gonna have to cap what's there, because we can't have environmental people being able to access the contaminated portion of the road, the ruins. If you're gonna build a structure over the top of that, why wouldn't it make sense to be able to bring that up to grade instead of having to have a longer ramp to get people down the grade?
Well, and that's a possibility to bring things up. Again, we'd have to kind of it's hard to say as somebody who's only seen the site a couple, twice, one time covered in snow, and I don't have any topographic information yet, so it's a little tough to make a call like that off the top of my head, but. Something that could be, presumably maybe a combination of the two,
A little dip down, so you still feel like you're down closer to the river, but not something where we're gonna have to disturb potential contaminated soil to get there.
Exactly, something like that. So some of this will be, outcomes will be driven by information about the degree of contamination and where it is and what kind and that sort of thing. I understand there's been a phase 2 done, which gives you it's a little bit more site investigations. I don't know if it's as much as we need, but the general idea, as my understanding is behind this, was to pursue this as an opportunity for the community to sort of think about what they might like to have there in the future as a sort of kind of park place, another place that's, next to the river and provides access to the river, in advance of pursuing the resources to remediate the site, because the EPA is going to be involved in just wrapping this up as quickly as possible. But it's a pretty magical site, as I'm sure I don't need to tell any of you. And it would be tremendous to provide people with some opportunities to have access to it. So that was really what Diane and I were meeting about, just, kind of spitballing a bit. Well, what could that be?
So the other things that come to my mind is high water marks. That area there does flood.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we put any kind of infrastructure in that is in a flood, the whole damn thing's flood zone, but if we're in an area where it's going to be common that high water is going to disturb or destroy the area, that doesn't make any sense to me. So
I think that's a floodplain. Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying, because that's pretty much what I've never seen it flood. The powerhouse has been there for I don't know how many years.
Water's been the I-beams in the bottom of the river.
That seen flood damage. My house on Main Street took water to the second floor in 27.
Sure.
So,
But not at that spot, not at that
Yeah,
location.
yes.
but I'm not saying it's going to flood at that. I'm just saying I don't know, because we don't typically respond to that area for floods. We're typically in the village, which is a lower plain.
Sure.
So my experience with what happens at that site, it has to be taken into consideration.
Sure, which is another reason why having it a bit elevated is a good idea.
Yeah.
But it's also gonna factor into, what you're gonna elevate it with. Because if what you're elevating it with is gonna be in the flood is, so I mean, that's all these things have to be, that's all engineering and stuff like that, so. I'm just thinking while she's factoring in the plan, she's not from the area, she might not know that we get high water here. I just wanted to make her aware of
Yeah,
that.
Kate's actually the landscape architect we hired to do the brownfield area-wide plan, so she knows Johnson
Pretty well.
very well. Yeah, so that's why this is it. Hi Kate, it's Kyle.
Oh, hi, Kyle.
So I do,
I thought it was just gonna be a scenic site, so people pull up, go stand at like like a rock patio or whatever it is, with guardrail or with a rail or whatever, and able to see with a couple picnic tables.
That was my thought there too, but,
That can be beautiful too.
yeah.
It can, but it can be the difference between any old pull-off scenic area where you got dust and cars and you're trying to eat your lunch with dust and cars and it's not that interesting versus a real destination spot. It's like, whoa, come to Johnson, see this bridge, and they have this really cool terrace lookout scenic spot where you can kind of be one with the river and not eating with traffic, and so it's just
I don't know how you're gonna avoid traffic, you can't get off the roof, I mean,
well, you can certainly move yourself some so that you feel more in connection with the river than you do the roof, under the sea.
But can't you do that still with a patio and then just walk down yourself? I haven't been here, so this is why I'm asking.
sure. So see, if you put, the parking is gonna be here.
Yep.
100C is right here.
Yep.
And it's like this, right?
Yep.
It's the hill. So we're thinking of grading this part from the rubble down and then having the platform over the foundation that's there so that you can look upstream.
Mhm.
You can look right where you are and downstream towards the covered bridge.
Much more inviting now, right?
It's really, that river is so beautiful. If you haven't ever.
But that would be a patio, that patio, it could be like a rock
But it
pad
has-
or whatever too. The patio, like, you know, bluestone or whatever, you can make a patio.
Sure, or it could be very inexpensively done with gravel and there are just some nice big rocks to sit on. There's any number of ways to do it. I just wanted to say that one of the things that Diane and I occurred to us when we were there was that this would be similar to the new rail stop. That's been updated over at the LVRT that has signage and information, what to do in Johnson, draws passersby to come to the village main street, which it's a similar opportunity to create another threshold that would help bring business people to Main Street businesses and just sort of let them know about what's to do in Johnson, and this is a place worth exploring. So another opportunity to serve the bottom land and the development of the grand list. That may be ambitious.
So, and so with the really steep embankment, we envisioned putting street trees in that area so that it would block noise from the cars and some bushes and some flowers. And I didn't talk to Kate about this, but you could have a sign with some flowers saying Johnson Village, because that is the Johnson Village. And I think people might slow down and actually go across the bridge and have people come to the village. And I think that we need to seriously consider the plan. I talked to Seth a while back about this, and he said that they may have resources to help develop a plan for the site. And he has thoughts on how to fund the planning and design and is available to support whichever direction we go in. So I think let's think about doing this. Let's talk to LCPC. Let's see what they can do for us. Let's see what EPA, but let's let's try it. Why not give it a try?
Well,
You
like-
guys
like
will
I said-
like going there.
Like I said, first thing we'd have to do though is,
is.
we'd have to look into the foundation contamination. The
But
removal.
it's kind of a cart before the horse, hard before the horse, you know, it's, so we kind of gotta have a plan, we kind of gotta have the EPA stuff figured out, but it's kind of like at the same time type thing, so I think starting with a plan. I just want to make sure that we're thinking of the same plan, because we don't want to go with, you know, this terrace and stuff like that, and everybody else is kind of thinking that, you know, we probably want to bring it up to grade and limit our amount of, I mean, it's winter in Vermont, I mean, I want people to have access to this thing year round. So, I mean, adding that amount of time for snow removal and stuff like that, on something like that, I think it's gonna be a detriment to our budget and to our workers. So personally, I'd like to see the elevation of this thing drop up, I want the limited amount of grade, and still have the overlook, when I say overlook, the wrong word.
To have
Better visual access of the bridge itself. I mean, that where that ruins is, if we cap that, bring it up, it's gonna get you at a good angle to be able to do that bridge. And there are people who come and look at covered bridges. So you're not wrong about bringing people in to access this here. So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
So, and if you're gonna have a better viewing point, I think that's gonna be a benefit for the village and the town. Don't wanna see it's a detriment to the town with the amount of maintenance, access, and work we can do to maintain this thing. We can limit that and still have the access, still have the beautiful pictures, still have people coming in to look at it without having to add multiple layers of additional work that's gonna be maintained for eternity.
Yeah, and I think what Pete was saying too is that you can find that balance, you know, where it's still dynamic and interesting and not just any old pull-off site. But there's a little more intention and interesting elements put in there that, so it's not, like you're saying, such a heavy lift for the village, but also thinking of it, flipping that and saying, okay, the more we make public spaces interesting places for tourists and people who live there, the more we're going to attract people to help, like she said, our grand lists, our bottom lines, so that we have, you know, more funds to work with to maintain. So to think of it as a detriment, well, maybe it's actually an opportunity, you know, for future funding. And I know it's, having lived here for as long as we've had an iPad, it's hard to sometimes see it from that angle. But I think if we try to
I
not be unrealistic, but also be visionaries.
Yeah.
That we're gonna get somewhere.
I think we can come to terms on this. So
I think we are. I'm just trying to give you
yeah.
this.
So I agree that I think this would be a benefit. Also, you said we need to make it in between. You know, we can't do this grandiose where we got, you know, this 20-degree grade and stuff like that we can maintain in wintertime or shut it down in the wintertime. And that would be my choice. If we do something grandiose like that, let's shut it right down. So as soon as October hits, it's shut off. We chain it and that's it. Let's not do that. Let's have access to it all year, but make it reasonable to maintain and actually keep that safe access. And we can't do that if we get a 20-foot grade.
Well, Kate is your woman because she works with almost no funding and makes amazing things.
Okay, so does it make, what I'm saying makes sense?
Yeah, and is there a grant that's paying for, I didn't hear about nothing like that.
I hope I can live up to expectations.
All year.
What were you guys saying?
I was just asking if there was do we have some kind of grant or something that we're thinking about using for this, or
What's that?
what?
Yeah, Seth, I read it.
Oh, that's what this was for, is that
Yeah,
part, okay.
So but we have to have a plan before we can, or acknowledge that we need a plan. It doesn't have to be really specific, but that we will want to put a platform over the foundation, have access to it. And that will, I think, buy us into a plan that LCPC will help us with.
So with what she's heard today from all of us, kind of come into that, like bring it in a little bit to try to get that platform and all that and come up with something to bring to us so we can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, that's,
I think even before that, I think so, Kate, forgive me, this may sound ignorant, but, so if you kind of take the direction that I think the majority of the board here is kind of directing you into, as far as making it so that it's maintainable, but yet still has a little bit of specialty to it, would that be enough to be able to just get something on, back of the matchbook type stuff to send to Seth to be able to start applying for a grant, to have you actually do an actual full scale planning?
Sure. I think the idea was that I was going to be maybe coming up with a couple of schemes that to present to you all, just to see if this was, what you were intending. Just some very broad brush, concept schemes. And I would show this in section because that's so important, about how all this would function, and then if that became something, we'd have some back and forth, I usually, when I show something to a client, I don't necessarily get it perfectly the first time. That's why I usually do like maybe 2 schemes, and there's pieces in one scheme that make sense and pieces in the other scheme that seem to make sense. And maybe the final one turns out to be something that's a combination of the 2. And then I bring it back and say, okay, is this more like what you had in mind? And if we get some agreement on that, then I think that would be the starting place to go with Seth and the other folks at LCPC. I think Melanie might be the sort of brownfields person these days, taking over from Leah, to start looking into next steps, like where would the pots of money be for starting to bring this to fruition. And of course, with anything with brownfields, this would have to be engineered and all of that stuff. So what we would be doing was really just very much the first step. But going to having something that says, this is the community's intention about this really important place, and this is how they'd like to see it developed. And then that would sort of set the mechanisms in place for bringing something like this to fruition.
And as to DJ's question, the funding for your time on this project?
My understanding is that it would just come from municipal assistance, from LCPC. So not at this point, not a charge to the town for this piece.
That's your question. Okay. All right. I guess at this point, to kind of beat it up here, anybody have any objection to moving forward with this step?
No, but I think we ought to definitely have, one of the plans ought to be on the downscaled side of the book.
Well, I think they both got to be, they can't be the grandiose. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Kenny was saying that he needs at least one plan. It's going to be a basic, bottom dollar type plan, and then something else that could be a little more grandiose. So instead of scaling up to medium, go from low to medium.
Okay, I could certainly do that.
Got is that, Kyle? Is that going to make you happy for a minute? Happy-ish?
Yeah, sure.
We're moving forward, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, probably one motion on that just to get her, so where we show on the books that we're supporting this action. Diane?
I make a motion that we ask Kate to draw 2 plans for the powerhouse site. One being a low kind of plan, and up to a medium cost plan.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion signify with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Chair is aye. We'll move forward. Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, next on my list, make sure it's people ready for the last month. Economic development grant writer position. Is something you want to speak to, Diane, or is this?
I think that we should move on hiring somebody. And I think that, you know, for some of the grants that I stated in my letter to everybody, I think that kind of stuff could be done without an economic development person. And so we could hire somebody right now to look for those grants and then have them happen. But I also think it's really kind of important to have an economic development person on board.
So are you
For
talking
the
about,
bigger stuff.
are you talking about having someone on the village or a joint?
It sounded like the select board really did want to share one. That was my feeling.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think that would work.
I agree. I just want to see what direction you were
Yeah.
considering.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to talk about on the budget, because trying to make a decision today without, when we're going, a month away from, budget items and stuff like that. Obviously, if the rest of the board wants to move forward with something, I'll entertain a motion, but my thought is, you get bill paid for something before you do it, so.
Well, like I said before, Meredith is getting paid half time, so I think for some of the grants, like getting a landscape designer for the Main Street for Main Street, for the incentives for Main Street and the scavenger hunt patrols, those grants are, you don't need an economic development person. You just need to hire somebody that can find those grants, write them, and see where they go with the grant. And I think that because we're Johnson, I think there's a really good chance that we will get those grants. And so I say, if you want me to look into a grant writer, I will put my heart and soul into it and come back and talk to you and see what I find out. And if you want to do it, I'll do it with you.
I'll entertain a motion, but I'll just say right here that until we look at our budget and actually have money to be able to support a position like that, I'm not back.
Well, I also would consider the option like Greg was saying. He hired that person to do grants, and when she finds grants, she gets paid for it. That lady that he uses. So that way it wouldn't be on our payroll, we wouldn't be paying all the medical and all that stuff, and we're only paying for what she's actually bringing in, which is only what we're asking her to bring in, because we have to remember also, we can't just go out and get as many grants as we want, because we're liable for the backside of some of them too. So I think I don't know how the right way to say it, I think on commission, I like that idea of a grant writer. If we're gonna go down that path without our next Meredith doing it all.
I just don't think Meredith told us that she can't do all the grants that are going to be out there. She said it. Brian's story has said it. And I think that if we don't take the opportunity, get the money that's out there, and I know that some people think that getting those grants is not okay. But if we don't get it, somebody else, some other town is going to get it. And I think I will find out, I can find out what kind of grant writer is out there. I will try to get the best deal. I'll come back and talk to you, and then we can maybe go forward on some
I
of
think if
these
we're gonna
things that will
interview-
basically change the downtown of Johnson a lot.
So my curiosity, the question to you is what is the difference with having somebody on commission to where we give them a project we want them to do, they get the grant for us and we pay them a couple grand for that, compared to somebody that's here, which is on our payroll and are limited because we can't just have them go out and get all these grants. They're gonna be getting specific grants here and there for us, but they're consistently on our payroll, consistently getting all the benefits and everything. How is that more of a benefit than somebody that's not on our payroll and is getting grants that we're asking them to? And I also look at it as, we might get, this lady is proven, like she goes out and gets grants and everything. And somebody that we hire, we could, not saying that we would, we could hire somebody that says they have all the knowledge in the world and has got a few, but just is not motivated. We don't have to deal with none of that employee stuff if we use a consultant. That's pretty much.
So can I look into it?
Yeah.
I would say that would be appropriate.
Okay.
So Steve, would you think it's appropriate for Diane to do a little research?
Absolutely. And I think we should look into a little bit more. I'm not clear myself exactly how Greg said that he did it with the Jenna's promise, but I think he could maybe help us with some good suggestions.
You, better not look back, you shot the hand, get some information, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have any opposition to talking to.
Oh, no.
Okay,
No,
all right.
I gather information.
They're related.
I know
Oh, yeah,
Greg, Greg is out.
Yeah, that's not always a shoe in. Stuck in all kinds of.
He might not get back yet.
Exactly. That's never granted.
No, and, yeah.
Okay, all right, so we put Diane to task and she always does well, so I have confidence that we'll put this on the next month's agenda to get an update from Diane. AARP grant update. Yep, it is.
So. We've done quite a bit on Legion Field. We received the money and.
We got $4,000.
Yeah, 4,000.
Yes, that was the 4,000 years becoming.
If you haven't been down to Legion Field, you have to go and see the fire pits. They are absolutely beautiful. I called RJ, he said it was okay to have them there. He told me to call Corey Davis, which I did. I left a message. We bought hoses and couplings for Brian. We got extension cords. We put up lights on the bandstand and the pizza oven. Brian donated the lights over the ice rink. They look awesome.
Brian.
They look so
Oh,
good.
okay. There's a few Brian's in my
Oh,
in
so,
my circle, so
yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Cedar was bought for benches and Dawn is going to make some. We got a cord of firewood delivered and stacked, actually half a cord, but we ordered a full cord. We have sleds, we are sharpening skates. Now we're getting ready to do art pieces for various parts of the village, which will be part of an art walk that we're doing and a scavenger hunt that's
Is
being.
anything are gonna go on those pedestals that we have, or?
No, they're being.
That's a huge, huge yeah, that's a whole.
I just think, are we talking
We want-
pictures, are we talking statues, are we talking, what are we talking?
Banners as canvas that we can individually hang in different spots. Pedestal sculptures, we definitely want someday, but that's a huge.
So
huge thing.
so you said banners,
Yep.
and so they're hanging on businesses, residences, or?
right now, there's one that's going to hang at the bandstand, another one is going to hang on the pizza oven.
Mostly Legion Field,
Okay,
since this grant's kind of.
okay, I just wanted to kind of get out here where to look for these things.
Yeah, and we're incorporating, I haven't done this yet, but I'm asking Lemoyle Union, Lemoyle Middle School, Laraway, NVU, Vermont Studio Center, Johnson Elementary, to paint the banners. And we have a theme for them to paint things on the canvas. It's joy and
It's just all positive words.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just
and,
love
and,
this
and it doesn't have to have words included, it can be just sort of like, interpretations of the word, joy and fun and community and stuff like that, pretty generic stuff.
Yeah, and they're going to put their affiliation on the banner, like if it's Memorial Union High School, they will put that on there. So that when people come, they know that Memorial Union is a part of Johnson. Oh, we're going to purchase timers from a bank, and we were wondering if the village would install the timers. And why not?
You can check with Troy, but they're not electricians, they're linemen, not electricians, so they don't have a license. to do electrical work.
Can they do it just as a courtesy to the community that they work in?
Is Troy available?
Yep, I can get him.
I just know in the past when I've dealt with stuff over the last number of years, if they'll put meters in and stuff like that, wiring, so they're just not licensed. So Diane has a question about installing
Timers
for the lights in Legion Field. Is that something within your purview, or?
I mean, it's already.
No, that's something that would be, an electrician would do, probably will.
Okay, that's what I thought too, but I mean, that's just not in your scope of covered work, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But if it's, I mean, we're not talking about it also being your work. It's just like a community thing that you do. That's.
I tell you what, if you want to contact Troy with the guys that on their time off, they want to come and do something for you, I'd be okay with that. But but under the purview of being a village employee, to do that, it's not covered under the licensing.
Are there outlets already there, Diane?
I think so.
Well, if there is, you can buy really inexpensive outdoor timers. that
We have them
plug
for our
in,
Christmas
it's just
lights.
set by a dial and they'll come on and go off
And they're
wherever you
outside.
set them at.
Snow, water won't.
Granted, somebody could steal them, they're $15, but you know what I mean? That would be a simple solution for you guys to be able to set up a timer system on and stuff. They're really inexpensive and they're indoor. Nope.
I bought some for the outside of our store when we had the lights.
Yeah, I
Christmas
know.
lights on,
They're
and
really
it's-
inexpensive and you just
Diane.
plug it in and it's a 12-hour, 24-hour time setting.
Yeah, Diane, if you need help with that, just let me know.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
we
very
have them
much.
at our house. It's
Thank
easy.
you. That's really nice. I appreciate
That
that.
would avoid the whole having an electrician or something like that commit. I mean, I think you're right. I think you just avoid
They're
that.
easy.
I was talking about like a box timer or stuff like that they have for the lights and oil and stuff like that. But yeah.
No, and these are, they're not Christmas lights, but they're,
String lights.
very sturdy.
They're string lights, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just need to go,
You just get an outlet, and I think Abishon sells a full outdoor one, right?
they got that, or on Amazon, you go for outside timers and then get them on there. And like you said, $25-30
Awesome.
each.
Okay,
Problem
Thank you.
solution. Cool.
very much. Well, and that is pretty much it.
Thanks, Troy.
Yep.
That's it. Perfect. Thank you very much for the update on that. That's very exciting stuff. The picture was awesome.
It's coming up so nicely.
Yep. Right, so the last thing on my paperwork here is COVID-19 guidelines. Does anybody, I'm not familiar with any changes to the state guidelines or recommendations?
Nothing to say.
No, but I have some stuff.
Okay, well, that's right. I'm just, what I want to check with the state regs first and then.
So I said I would come back with a motion.
Yep.
About COVID, and this is what I came up with. My motion is to send a letter from us, the village trustees, to our area schools, businesses, and our community through our billing envelopes, a letter to the schools, posted on Front Porch Forum and the News and Citizen to inform citizens so they can make decisions based on scientific evidence. That's my motion. And the letter would be this: the village trustees care about our community's health and safety. It would benefit everyone if the two following things were implemented by all. Number one, please get vaccinated and get the booster shot. Vaccines are highly protective, but the protection drops with the passage of time. The booster shot affords people 10 times more protection. And vaccines and boosters are free. Number two, please wear a mask in indoor spaces. The most effective masks are N95s. Doing these things will protect our businesses and keep them open. We believe that members of our community should protect each other. So let's do it together.
That's your motion.
That is my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Seeing none.
Rosemary, how much would that cost to send letters out to them?
And then you include it in the, budget bills.
So if we send it out in the bill, it wouldn't cost any more besides printing.
Yes.
Well, okay, so no discussion. I'll just say that I'm not comfortable with this board giving medical advice when the state has, website set up for it and stuff like that.
The state gave us direction to something for their town or village. They did give us that direction.
They give us the option.
Yep.
So
And so.
that's all
this
I'm
is
gonna
my
say.
option.
That's all I'm gonna say. So any other discussion on this?
I
Nope.
support it.
Me personally, without knowing like all the details she's mentioning, like I don't know all those details, so I can't do that. I would definitely support something that went out saying that we support our local community, like the store, for example. If they have it where they want people to wear masks, I absolutely support it. So I support any local business that requires mask wearing. But I don't support nothing that goes out there with facts because I
You don't
don't know all
support
the
what?
facts. I'd support any business or any location that says we want people to wear masks to come in or to buy stuff. I support their choice. So I definitely would put my name on anything supporting any business that wants to do that and back them up. I just can't put my name on something or my vote on something with a whole bunch of details that I don't know for a fact, like what really works and what doesn't and percentages and all that stuff.
You want me
It's
to?
not a whole lot of details.
Yeah, but the thing is do I believe it? No, that's my personal feelings. I'll support any business that requires it and wants people to wear it and their employees to wear it, absolutely. But I just won't tell people that they need to do it or they should do it or because of this, this, and this.
I don't think the letter is saying that. I think the letter is stating that vaccinations and boosters help.
You get percentages. So
Yeah.
That's based on scientific.
Yes, I looked it up. And
Yeah, but I'm sure you
it's-
can find scientific fact other places with different
No, this
percentages
is from the
too.
CDC, which is how the government puts out information. That is the real fact. And the booster is 10 times more effective.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, said motion signify with an aye.
I
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. 3 to 2, doesn't pass. Do a roll call on that, just to make sure. Diane?
I,
Steve?
Aye.
DJ?
Nay.
Kenny?
Nay.
Chair with nay. Motion fails. Any other business to be brought before this board?
Can I just, put a request that maybe is discussed at our next meeting about Cold Spring and just sort of the maintenance and care of the Cold Spring. It's, village property.
Right, but what's your reference? To,
I-
concern or?
Well, I appreciate like when it's not running or the pump's out or something, that gets replaced and so it's working again, but there just seems to be a lack to know, like shoveling of snow. It's extremely icy at times now. I mean, it's a real, talk about like, it's really frightening. It's really frightening. And a lot of people use that Cold Spring. It's not like there's something in there. And I've seen a lot of older people. It's such a, and it's also has amazing potential to be also beautiful and space that we should be proud of and promote. And it just looks shabby and run down and not taken care of. And it's kind of breaks my heart. And I'm afraid someone's actually break a bone. So I'm just wondering what, I don't know. Yeah, it just feels like it never, it's in.
go check it out. It's really, it's not safe.
And again, we're gonna agree to that. I don't want to shut it down, but if it becomes that kind of a liability, that's my first reaction.
I think it's liability,
Is to chain it off and not prevent and allow access to it in the winter time. I think you need to get somebody else to do
Well,
that.
I think it serves a real community.
Well, and I said, I agree with you. I mean, there isn't a day goes by, I don't see someone down there getting water or something like that. And to Meredith's chagrin, she doesn't, you know, from the safety standpoint, without water not being treated, you know, but we got signs up and stuff like that. I drink out of that water for 50 odd years, so, you know, if there's signage up, I'm okay with it staying open. But if your point of this being icy and stuff like that, that becomes a real liability. And
Well, it's becoming a liability because it's not maintained properly by the letters, you know.
yeah.
You employ or.
So Meredith, can you just have Troy give me a call tomorrow and I can get his viewpoint on it, and Rosemary, we just put on next month's agenda so we can talk about what we found out. And does that
Yeah,
work?
yep.
Does that
That'd be
work?
great.
And I'll
Just
go
to
look
start
at
the
it.
discussion, because I'm not sure what, you know,
Yeah.
the responsibilities
Hopefully,
are. And
hopefully we'll remember to bring it up, because Rosemary will put it on, because her memory is like way better than mine, and I'm hopefully we'll have some answers to Troy. And we'll have a plan of action, or at least a direction to talk about.
Cool.
And I'll
And I can just add that I think, you know, one of the questions the board needs to think about is, why would people be accessing it, and why would we be clearing and putting taxpayer dollars towards clearing it in the winter? Is because we know that's encouraging and allowing people to go and use it for drinking. And we've clearly stated over and over again that it should not be used for drinking. So that's an inconsistency that I definitely think you need to think about.
So just have Troy give me a call when it's at his convenience, and we'll get his viewpoint and what we think we can do to accommodate both sides of that. Any other discussions or topics we want to talk about tonight? Seeing none, motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you all very much. See you Wednesday. See you 2 days. Thank you.